All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a period of biblical history that, a lot of us think we know, but it turns out it's one of the most misunderstood. This is the real story of Israel's lost age, that chaotic, wild time before they had any kings. I mean, we've all heard the names, right? The Philistines, Samson and Delilah, the Book of Judges. But those familiar Sunday school stories, they kind of hide a much more complex and, frankly, a way more chaotic reality about what was going on in ancient Israel.
So we're going to unpack how archaeology, plus a deeper look at the ancient texts, reveals that this key period wasn't some ideal age of faith. Not at all. It was a brutal, 350-year-long age of anarchy.
And it all kicks off with Israel's most famous enemies, the Philistines. But see, they weren't just some local nuisance. They were a technological and military superpower that had the entire region in a chokehold.
The thing is, the Philistines weren't even from Canaan originally. They were Aegean warriors, part of this massive migration called the Sea Peoples. And after they were defeated in battle, the Egyptians did something really strategic. They settled these incredible fighters along the coast to act as vassals, basically creating a powerful buffer zone for them.
And this is the key. It tells us that these 5 huge Philistine cities weren't conquered territory. Nope, they were Egyptian-controlled garrisons, put there to guard trade routes and protect the pharaoh's interests. The Philistines were, for all intents and purposes, hired muscle for Egypt.
But what was it that made these guys so tough, so unbeatable for centuries? It wasn't just that they were good fighters. They had a secret weapon, a tech advantage that was as big a deal in its day as, say, gunpowder or even the atomic bomb. It all came down to one thing, an iron monopoly. While the Israelites and all their neighbors were stuck fighting with brittle bronze weapons, the Philistines had mastered smelting iron ore. This meant they had strong, sharp iron swords and spears, and they completely controlled the technology. No one else had it. But the Philistines are just one piece of the puzzle. That was the immense military pressure from the outside. To really get what was happening on the inside, the chaos, we have to turn to this amazing archaeological discovery that honestly changed everything. Picture this. Almost a century ago, a Syrian farmer's plow just hits a stone slab by accident. And what he uncovered was the lost city of Ugarit. The city had been violently destroyed around 1200 BC, and, this is crucial, it was never reoccupied. It was left perfectly preserved, like a time capsule. Down in the ruins, archaeologists found hundreds of clay tablets, and these tablets became a kind of Rosetta Stone for understanding the world of the Old Testament. The language was so similar to Biblical Hebrew that it suddenly unlocked the structure of ancient poetry, it gave meaning to words that had baffled scholars for centuries, and, for the very first time, it gave us a really detailed look at the Canaanite religion the Bible was always warning about.
Okay, want a perfect example of how big a deal this was? For centuries, translators were totally confused by these passages where prophets were told to hew down the groves. They just assumed it meant, chopping down trees, which always seemed a little odd for a major religious command.
And boom, this is how Ugarit gave us the context we were missing. The tablets revealed that groves had nothing to do with trees. It was about hewing down or destroying the wooden cult images of the Canaanite fertility goddess, Asherah. The original text had been right all along. We just didn't have the cultural dictionary to understand it until we found Ugarit.
So, let's put these two big pieces together. You have the overwhelming Philistine military threat on the outside, and then this complex Canaanite cultural world that Ugarit revealed on the inside. All of this sets the stage for the main question about this whole period of the Judges.
For a long time, people thought of this period as an ideal theocracy, a time when God ruled directly. But as Dr. Donald Fowler argues, the actual evidence points to the complete opposite. It wasn't an ideal society, it was a total breakdown of society. It was anarchy. And you don't even have to look outside the Bible to see it. The book of Judges itself repeats this chilling line over and over again. Now that's not a description of a holy society. That's a description of chaos, a complete lack of central authority where every single person and every single tribe was a law unto themselves. But what's really stunning is what's missing. Across this whole 350-year story, the core pillars of Israel's faith, they're almost completely gone. The law, the tabernacle, the ark, holy days, they're just not there. The data points to a complete religious and institutional collapse. And that's why Dr. Fowler puts it so bluntly. The evidence from both archaeology and the text itself shows this wasn't some golden age of God's rule. It was a period of national disillusion, religious abandonment, and just total anarchy.
So what happens when a fragmented society, totally collapsing from within, is also facing a technologically superior enemy on the outside? Well, they get desperate. Desperate for a whole new solution.
And this is where it all snaps into focus. You had the external pressure from the Philistine iron monopoly combined with this internal collapse into tribalism and anarchy. It created a perfect storm. The people realized their loose group of tribes just wasn't cutting it anymore, and that led to this desperate demand for something new, a king, someone to unite them and to fight their battles for them.
So here's the big takeaway from all this. The age of the judges was never some golden age to look back on. It was a brutal 350-year-long crucible. This painful, chaotic period was actually what was necessary to break down those old tribal loyalties and finally make the Israelites willing to unite under a single leader.
So in the end, they got exactly what they asked for. They got a king. But that brings up the ultimate question, doesn't it? In trading anarchy for monarchy, did the Israelites actually solve their problems? Or did they just trade one set of challenges for a whole new one? Well, that's a question history would spend the next few centuries answering.